This is the PlayStation Portal, a somewhat new cloud streaming remote play device for your PS5, not to be confused with the PS Vita or even the PSP, because unlike those other devices, this is not what the PS Portal is designed to do. The sole function and value derived from the PlayStation Portal is contingent on the user having a PS5. The Portal needs to connect to a PS5 to stream any of your installed games from your PS5 to the Portal itself. So you can't have the Portal without the PlayStation 5. And building off of that, this is the first time where it truly feels like Sony is pushing an ecosystem of products. Now the PlayStation Portal, this thing was surprisingly scarce and hard to find at most retailers. Since the device launched in November of 2023, most major retailers seemingly have no Portals in stock. And even trying to buy the device on Sony's website directly shows that the device is still unavailable. That's crazy to me. So what's up with the Portal? Is it really that big of a deal? Honestly, yeah, it kinda is. But before we dive into the meat and potatoes of this video, I wanted to mention that this video does not serve as a traditional review or impressions video. There are far better videos out there that detail the Portal's internals and overall specs, so I encourage you to check out those other videos after watching this one to help you better formulate an opinion on whether or not PlayStation Portal is right for you. Instead, I wanted to take some time today to focus on talking high level about my time with the PlayStation Portal and also go over the types of games and experiences that I think are best suited for PlayStation Portal. So without further ado, let's talk Portal. I'll start off by stating I'm not the biggest fan of Sony's cloud streaming initiatives. I've used PS Now on my PlayStation 3 and Windows PC. I've also used PS4 and PS5 game streaming on my PS5 via PS Plus, and to say that my experiences were underwhelming and far from optimal is putting things lightly. And this was even after plugging my PS3, my PC, and my PS5 systems directly into my router via an Ethernet connection. So I was taken aback to find that the PlayStation Portal has been a pleasant surprise and far better than all my other cloud-based gaming experiences I've had. I found the overall image quality when playing games to be clear, featured minimal artifacting, and was relatively smooth. And even though there were instances where I would lose connection to my PlayStation 5, the Portal was able to reconnect to the PlayStation 5 in a matter of seconds, rarely taking me out of the overall experience. Now I've mentioned that I've had the Portal for well over 2 months, and in those 2 months I was able to play a wide variety of games. And I thought it could be a fun idea to actually break down all of the games I played into 3 distinctive tiers. The first tier represents the best games and experiences to try out on the PlayStation Portal. The second tier represents decent games that work well on the Portal, but really won't set your world on fire. And the final tier are games that I would recommend not playing on the Portal at all. Just use your PlayStation 5. Now, before we go into the tier list itself, you can obviously play whatever you want on your PlayStation Portal. And just because I didn't have a great experience with some of these games doesn't mean you will too. I encourage everyone to try out their favorite games, see what works best for them, and again, come up with your own findings. All right, everybody. So as promised, we are taking a look at the games and experiences that I had while playing on the PlayStation Portal. And again, this is all over the span of the 2 months that I've had it. So only a little bit of time, but I think there's been enough time that has passed to kind of give a general idea of how I'm feeling about some of these games, some of these experiences, and what I personally find to be the best way to play on the Portal, some of the best games to try out on the Portal, and just the best types of experiences I think you could have on Portal. And obviously, it's just my opinion, so everybody else is going to have their own opinions, their own thoughts, so I encourage everybody to leave those thoughts and comments down below, and let me know if there are any games or experiences that you personally like to have on your PlayStation Portal. So once again, we have the tiers here. We've got best games, it's just, best experiences I think that you could have on Portal, best experiences that I've had on the Portal so far. The meh okay category is just it's more personal preference, I guess, at this point. There's some stuff that's going to be on there that you might not necessarily agree with, but again, it's all my own opinion, my own take. And then save yourself, the very last tier there is stuff that I think you're just better off playing on your PlayStation 5 and just kind of saying, Portal, you're great, but there's certain experiences that I just want to have elsewhere. So let's get things out of the way. Let's just get things started off first. Let's go ahead and do this Theatrerhythm Final Fantasy here. And I think this is a perfect example of save yourself. I have Theatrerhythm Final Fantasy here as it's just the one item, but I did end up playing the Persona dancing games, both 3 and 5, and then I also ended up playing Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory. So a lot of music and rhythm-based games, but most of the music and rhythm is kind of from button inputs from your controller as opposed to a peripheral like a guitar or something, right? So Theatrerhythm, when you see Theatrerhythm Final Fantasy here and save yourself, it also applies to the Persona dancing games or just in general other rhythm-based games. Now, while I didn't have a horrible time playing this on my Portal, it's just really one of those things where the input lag, the overall delay kind of just is so apparent when you're trying to hit these notes perfectly, and you're pretty sure that you hit them, within the window that you're supposed to, and then it just registers that you didn't hit it at all. It's not the type of experience that I think you want to have while playing on your Portal. And surely there are other better experiences that we'll go through in just a second that you could easily have while playing on the Portal. So I would save yourself on the Theatrerhythm, the rhythm and music type games. Not really the best time for your Portal. But now let's maybe move on to something else here, kind of mix things up a little bit. Let's go to Cyberpunk here. In Cyberpunk 2077, again, this is more personal preference here, and I'll explain why. I think Cyberpunk's a good, it's meh, okay on the Portal, and the reasoning for me, at least, as to why it belongs here, these are types of games and experiences that I get more out of when they're on a big screen. You get to see the full city landscape, you really get to soak in the environment, and you kind of get immersed in that world. And for me, it's like when people say, oh, you have to see Avatar on a big IMAX screen, or you have to see Dune 2 in a big screen, right? It's not the same when you watch it on a smaller screen or screen at home, right? But everybody's different. But honestly, for me, I kind of fit into that camp for games like Cyberpunk 2077, Horizon Zero Dawn, and Forbidden West, like those big sprawling open worlds with very high density of detail and foliage. And you're really I think you can appreciate it even more when it's on a big screen. And don't get me wrong, seeing Cyberpunk on a Portal is super cool, especially when you get to play it in bed. Like it's really, it's a cool experience when you're kind of going through it for the first time. So I won't deny it's completely functional, and it ran pretty well when I was, playing it on the Portal. And it is its own type of experience, right? But for me, I'd rather have that experience on a big TV, or just on a bigger screen in general. It doesn't have to be a huge TV, just just a screen that is a little bit larger. And yeah, that's about it for me. But overall, it's still super functional. It plays really well in the Portal. You got the triggers, the haptic feedback, and all that good stuff, right? That kind of adds to the overall experience when you play on the PlayStation controller. But yeah, overall, I would just play it on my TV. But there's nothing wrong with playing it on the Portal, is the main thing I'll say. All right, next here, let's go to something like Sea of Stars here. Now, Sea of Stars is, for me, a perfect example of one of the best games, or one of the best types of experiences you can have on Portal. It's a turn-based RPG. It's got amazing art, incredible soundtrack, all these great little things that add up to an incredible experience. And for me personally, I like to have my RPGs on a handheld device. I like turn-based RPGs on a portable device. I think it goes back to the days of Pokemon, the early Fire Emblems. There's just something about it. I prefer to have them on a handheld. And so playing Sea of Stars on the Portal was excellent. And again, it's turn-based, so you really don't have to worry too much about your inputs. But something like this in particular, I think just kind of has a natural home on Portal. And you'll kind of see with the other stuff that I bring into the best games category, I kind of, leaned more heavily into the smaller experiences. But overall, Sea of Stars, make no mistakes, is an incredible game. And I just think that the type of game and experience that it is works very well on Portal in that handheld format for sure. Let's mix things up again. Let's go and take a look here at Bloodborne and Lies of P. Now, I realize that both Bloodborne and Lies of P, they're Souls games, or at least Lies of P is a Souls-like game. But same type of game. And I know for Theatrerhythm, I kind of generalized the music and rhythm games into this one tile. So Bloodborne and Lies of P, I'm just kind of cheating a little bit here, but nevertheless, both of them 100% belong in this save yourself tier. And it's pretty evident, I think, when everybody saw those two on the bottom there immediately was oh yeah, it's gonna go there. And you're right, these are not the types of experiences that I personally would say you should go for on Portal. Lies of P is pretty heavily dependent on your parrying abilities. It is very much like a Sekiro in that sense, where you really have to parry and break your opponent's stance and things like that. The nature of the type of game that it is doesn't really lend itself well to Portal. You have to time those parries pretty well, and as you can imagine, the input is there's just so much, there's a delay, right? So obviously you're not gonna be able to hit those parries with consistency all the time, or even any of the times like I was trying to do. And Bloodborne is the same sort of thing. The pace of that game, it's a very fast-paced game. You kind of got to get into combat, get out of combat, and just really, it's not conducive to being a good experience on Portal. You can still totally play these games on the PlayStation Portal. I encourage you to try it out and let me know what you guys think, but for me, I can't do it. I really can't do it, especially with Lies of P. There's something to Lies of P. I'm not very good at parrying in these games to begin with, So you really I kind of just handicapped myself by playing on the Portal in the first place, and just kind of made the experience even harder for me. But yeah, I think it's safe to say the Sekiros, the Bloodborns, the Souls games, right? Souls-like games, not really the best thing for Portal. And at that point, you should just save yourself and just play it on your PlayStation 5. Okay, next here, let's go to a new game that I've never played before, Coffee Talk. This is going to go into best games here. Now, Coffee Talk, yeah, this is it's more of a visual novel, right? You're just kind of reading a bunch of text, interacting with characters that kind of come in and out of your coffee shop, and all you're really doing is reading text, serving customers, making coffee. And essentially, like, that's all really the game flow is, or the main flow of the game would end up being, is just you get new patrons, go through some text options, make them a coffee drink, read some more text options, and then, the cycle kind of repeats in that sense. So not very intensive when it comes to, player interactivity. It's more of like a visual novel. You're kind of just sitting down, having a cozy experience, and kind of just going along for the ride. And again, I think for Portal, it just kind of is a perfect place to have those types of experiences. So Coffee Talk, really enjoyed playing it on the Portal. There were a couple nights while I was playing it where it was raining, so kind of added to the overall experience, because this game takes place in Seattle. So it just kind of added an extra layer of coziness to the game. But yeah, I really had a great time playing it on Portal. And again, you'll kind of see some more of the similar types of games that I've enjoyed playing on Portal. But yeah, Coffee Talk, really, really solid. I think playing it on Portal was awesome. Okay, next here, let's go to Hades here. Now, Hades you might think would go into save yourself, but actually I kind of had a okay time with it. Reason being is I actually was able to do a few runs, not with like any of the modifiers in play, like just standard Hades runs, no Pact of Punishment adjustments, anything crazy like that. Just standard runs on Hades. And I actually found that like I was able to get through the runs pretty okay. I would sort of take more damage if I, as opposed to if I had played it on my PlayStation 5. There's so many instances where I'm pretty sure I had dashed, but didn't register on Portal, and so I got hit a couple of times for damage. And so there's definitely, while playing it on Portal, I definitely found myself taking way more damage, but I was still able to make it through and complete runs. But Hades is one of those games where like the controls are so tight, and it is such a fun, enjoyable game that is based around not only its story, but its really tight combat. So when you play it on something like Portal, you kind of immediately know that, you kind of feel it. You're like, oh, it's a little off, but it's still playable. It's still a good time. And ultimately, that's kind of how I felt, was that it was good. I'm not going to say save yourself and just play it on your PlayStation 5, because it's actually, I think, more playable than Bloodborne Eliza P ended up being. But yeah, it's just, I guess, personal preference at that point. If you'd rather have this type of experience on the go, handheld, play Hades on your Portal. I will say this, though, I did play Supergiant's other game, one of their other games, I should say, not their other game. But in addition to Hades, I actually also played Pyre. And I think Pyre is a far better experience than Hades is on the portable device, because it's very text heavy as well, just like Hades, because the same studio. But the actual moment-to-moment gameplay is more like basketball and soccer, so it's a little bit more forgiving, I've found, than something like Hades, which is like, the gameplay for Pyre is a little bit more conducive to the types of experience that you probably want to have on Portal, as opposed to something like Hades. So I thought that was interesting. If you've played Pyre, if you don't know what Pyre is, look it up. It is really fantastic. And I think the studio is really pretty much only known for Hades at this point. A lot of people love Hades. But Hades is still a good time. I would recommend giving it a shot and seeing what you think about it on the Portal. Next here is, I was going to save this for last. I can't. Balatro. Balatro, man, is one of the best games you can play on your Portal. It's one of the best types of experiences you can have on your Portal. If you don't know what Balatro is, it is an incredible indie game. It is a poker deck building roguelike. So the basis of the gameplay is all based around creating poker hands. So you kind of have to have some experience with poker, but not really, because the game intuitively tells you how to play a poker hand, what type of poker hands give you certain types of scores, and based on your score that you get each round, you basically have to beat a high score for like a boss. We'll call them bosses. But it's another roguelike, but essentially all you're really doing is just picking cards to play for your hand each round, and then you'll get some number of points. Those points contribute to your total score, and if your total score surpasses the score of like the boss that you're facing against, then you win the round. So Balatro is really great for the Portal, because again, you're just playing decks, your card deck. You're playing individual cards in your deck, and it reminded me like the early days when you'd buy like a rinky-dink tablet, and it'd have like solitaire on it, and you would just play like solitaire in bed at night on your tablet. It kind of gave me those vibes again, where you're just kind of playing a card game on this like little portable device, and 10 hours go by and you're like, oh wow, that was one chunk of time that I spent just playing this game. But Balatro is really, really fun to play on the Portal. It's like super catered to that type of experience. And if you haven't checked out Balatro, I would highly recommend just doing some research and seeing if the game is for you. But like pretty much everybody that I've recommended this game to has sort of fallen in love with it and they play it nonstop. And I would say if you've got a Portal, check out Balatro, because Balatro is definitely the game that I played the most of while I've had the Portal. It's still great to play on your PlayStation 5, don't get me wrong, but playing it in your bed, just like hanging out, playing some, rounds, it's so fun. So I recommend Balatro as like a good experience to have on your Portal. Alrighty, next up here, let's go to Doki Doki. I'm gonna put Doki Doki in, again, best games, best type of experiences. Doki Doki is a visual novel, psychological horror game that I never played before. The 2024 first time playing Doki Doki Literature Club. One of my buddies messaged me on PSN while I was playing it, and he was like, is this 2017? And like, he didn't even know I hadn't played it before, but this is my first time playing it. And I played it predominantly on Portal, and I will say it definitely was a good time playing it on Portal. Again, visual novel, some twists and turns. It was very surreal and creepy, but this type of game, again, works very well in this handheld format. And I really enjoyed Doki Doki. Okay, next here, let's go to Overwatch. This one might be a little surprising. I actually am going to put it in meh okay. The reason I'm going to put it in meh okay as opposed to save yourself is because similar to Cyberpunk, it's very functional. You can play this game perfectly fine, but I would highly recommend, obviously, do not play competitive modes on your Portal. If you're trying to play competitive Overwatch at like a high elo, then obviously it goes into save yourself. It's a horrible time. But if you're just playing it casually, messing around, kind of seeing, how does this game play on the Portal, which was mainly kind of the mindset I was going into it with, it's okay. And fun fact, actually, I found that the PlayStation Portal, like playing Overwatch on PlayStation Portal, ran better than the native Switch port. The Switch version of Overwatch is an abomination. It is so bad. You hook that thing up to a TV and there's like this weird ghosting strobing effect when you try to turn quickly. It's insane to me how that port was just greenlit and everyone was fine with it. It's a horrible experience, I think. But having said that, playing Overwatch on the Portal I actually found to be a better time, which is crazy, right? But again, if you're doing something like competitive Overwatch or like a Masters player or like a GM player, don't play it on your Portal. I feel like it's pretty obvious. Like, I don't even have to say it, but just don't do it. If you're playing around with like a new character, I was playing the new character Venture, for example, and they're a lot of fun, by the way. But yeah, I was just like kind of playing around with their kit and doing it on the Portal, and I had a good time. It was actually really fun. And again, the haptic feedback, the adaptive triggers, like all that stuff works perfectly fine on the Portal. So it really does add to the overall experience. But again, it's okay. It's fine. I wouldn't recommend you go out of your way to play it on Portal, and I certainly wouldn't recommend you playing high-level Overwatch on your Portal. All right, next here is Sackboy. Sackboy, I'm going to go stick into okay as well. I personally like to just do platforming games on like a big screen as well. And for me, like there was some input delay when I was playing Sackboy, but not to the point where like it was a horrible experience. I would say for Sackboy, one thing I did want to make a note of is that in this game, there are these things called the Knitted Night challenges, which are kind of like the more intensive, more challenging platforming levels that you have to kind of compete and get a good time on in order to like get some reward for. And these are the types of instances where I'm like, don't play it on your Portal, especially if you're really trying to go and get like really low times. Don't do it. Just play it on your PlayStation 5. So if you're doing something like time trials or anything like super intensive, some of the more challenging platforming levels in like a platforming game, probably better off playing it on your PlayStation 5. But if you're just casually playing through some of the levels of Sackboy, most of the Sackboy levels aren't too difficult. And so like if there's a little bit of a delay, it wasn't super noticeable. It really didn't ruin the experience for me. But again, if you're doing something like a time trial mode, or if you're doing something like really difficult levels, like platforming levels within a platforming game, don't do it. Obviously, Super Meat Boy, don't even bother playing on your Portal. But something like Sackboy, which is a little bit more casual by nature, I think you could totally get away with playing it on your Portal. But overall, like, it's good. It's a good time. Be mindful that there's certain things within something like even like the Sackboy game where you kind of you have a preference for Portal or playing it on your PlayStation 5. And again, something that's more intense overall, like Super Meat Boy, don't even bother with it. Just don't even do it. Okay, final one here is Returnal. This is going to go right into Save Yourself. And again, Returnal kind of with like, it's another roguelike that we're seeing on this list, but Returnal is a third-person shooter as opposed to Hades, which is not a shooter at all. I've just found that I can't play this game on my Portal. I just can't effectively go through any of the runs on Returnal. And this is a game that I've spent like dozens of hours in. I've 100%ed it. Like, I know the game inside and out. And even with that knowledge, I still died quite a bit playing it on Portal. I don't know if it's because it's a third-person shooter and that's sort of the issue here. But all I know is that I didn't really have a great time playing Returnal on my Portal. I just found that there's instances where, yeah, like I could get through the first 3 biomes, whatever, and then like I just kind of got destroyed on the last few. Maybe I'm rusty. It probably is because I'm rusty, but I did feel that if I just played this on my PlayStation 5, I would have just beaten the run I was on. Just me personally. Everyone's gonna differ, I think, in their experiences with something like Returnal, maybe. But for me, since I think it was a third-person shooter, the nature of that on the handheld, while it was really cool to play on the Portal for sure, it was super cool. I don't know. I would rather just play it on my PlayStation 5. I just know that I would be able to go through the runs a little bit more ease. Same thing with like Hades, where I found myself getting hit way more than I'm used to. And I think it's just because there's that slight amount of delay. But this is going to be the complete list here. And again, you know, things like Theatrerhythm, I kind of generalized all the music and rhythm games into one tile here. But again, like music and rhythm stuff, I really wouldn't go out of my way to play on Portal. But something like, you know, Cyberpunk, everybody's going to have their own opinions on. I personally would just prefer to play it on a big screen as opposed to on a tiny handheld device, but it's super functional and pretty cool playing it on the Portal itself. And then you've got these games up here, Sea of Stars, Coffee Talk, you know, Balatro especially. These are like perfect little experiences you can have on the Portal, and it really just lends itself well to just this handheld device that Sony's created. Again, everybody's gonna have their own preferences, their own opinions, their own, you know, everything. So please, please, please leave some comments down below. I wanna know what other people have been experiencing with their Portal. What games have you found that have played better than you've expected? What games have played horribly and you kind of anticipated them, you know, playing pretty poorly? Just let me know. I'm curious to see what everybody's kind of been using their portals with, or, you know, using their portals for. And again, you know, I really appreciate all of you for sticking around to check out this tier list. I really love my PlayStation Portal, and I recommend if you can find one in stock, give it a look. But thank you guys so much for sticking around till the end of the video. I super appreciate all of the support that you've been showing on this channel. And, you know, look forward to more stuff coming soon, because, you know, we'll be working on even more videos down the line. And I will see you guys all on the next video.